When your favorite Romeo grabs his hat and starts to go, don't reveal the fact that you're blue. Don't break down and start to boo-hoo. There's just one thing for you, la la too.
Wednesday, October 29th to order. Today we have 4 items on our agenda, and I haven't received any requests for continuances, so we'll hear the items in the order they appear on the agenda. Under announcements and appeals, I have no announcements, and there's been no appeals. So we'll move on to, is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the staff hearing officer on items not on today's agenda? No, seeing no one, we'll go to the first item, which is 304 Winipero Plaza. If the applicant would like to come up. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Barbara Lowenthal, Harrison Design, agent for the owners at 304 Junipero Plaza.
Okay, we'll let Betsy give her presentation, and then you can add whatever you'd like.
So in 2012, there was a zoning inspection report on the property, and there were some violations that were noted on the report. And so this proposed project is to clean up the zoning violations. They're going to remove or relocate a shed and remove the wraparound porch. And the application before you today is for a modification for a small encroachment into the required interior setback for an existing arbor pergola structure. It's a metal structure, and it's mostly the posts which encroach, but there's a slight overhang, this portion right in here. And so this project went before HLC, and there was a historic structures report prepared for it, and the report was, and the project was reviewed by HLC and approved by them. They found no impact by the pergola or arbor. Staff supports the modification because we believe it's really just a minor encroachment in the setback. We also, the applicant has advised us that it would be very difficult to move this structure, this metal structure, because it would really end up destroying the arbor. And so we felt, given the fairly large setback, that there is no adjacent residence next to the setback. There's the garage over here, but the adjacent dwelling is over 30 feet away from the structure. We felt that the request is appropriate, and as I said, it's very very minor, and we can support this as a positive, a good project. So, do you have anything to add?
No, I really don't. We're probably going to end up removing the shed and rebuilding it because it, too, has a foundation that's difficult to deal with the way the arbor does. But we did agree to move it out of the setback. So that's pretty much it. And restoring the porch to its original configuration from when the house was built in the late 1800s.
And that was reviewed by an urban historian.
Yes, and by HLC, and they haven't given us approval yet because we had to come to you, but we did get unanimous positive comments from them.
Okay, great, thank you. I'd like to open the public comment. Is there anybody here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 304 Winipero Plaza? No, have we received any?
Not that I know.
Okay, great, I'll close the public hearing. I went out to the site and viewed the pergola and to get a feel of what's adjacent to it. And I agree with staff's conclusion that it's a minor encroachment. The majority of it is the support posts. And we have these setback areas, and just because you have setback areas doesn't mean you can't use them. I don't think that this type of structure would cause any adverse impacts. So I can make the findings outlined in the staff report. There is a condition of approval that you abate the violations, which
Right.
you're proposing to do anyway.
Right.
So I can approve your project subject to that condition. My action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have oversight authority of all my actions. And if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day review period. And if that was to occur, Betsy would contact you.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Betsy.
The next next item is 3761 Lincoln Road. Is the applicant here? Do you know is the applicant planning on coming?
Believed it was Chris. Chris Denzel was the agent.
I wonder, I could go ahead and hear it, or if we should hear Michelle and give him a little more time.
Is Michelle?
Let's see if we can get a hold of Michelle.
Okay. I will go call Chris also.
We'll just wait.
Okay.
Okay, you know what? We can just hear it, and then when you're done, give him a call. Let him know.
Okay.
Because he might have think it's more like a design board where they take longer time. And why don't we do that? Okay, so go ahead and you can give your presentation.
Okay. So the subject property is at 3761 Lincoln, and the proposal is for some an addition on the first floor, which we had made an error on the staff report. So I just wanted to correct that we noted it was on the second story, but it's really on the first floor. But the application before you today is for a new balcony, which will encroach slightly into the existing open yard. In 1999, this property received approval for a modification to allow a slight reduction in the open yard. And their open yard is a little unusual. It's a courtyard. So the house, you can see, surrounds the courtyard. So we allowed this slight reduction. And one of the conditions was that it would be maintained at that level. But we believe that this new encroachment is very slight. You're allowed to encroach 2 feet into the for a balcony can encroach 2 feet into the open yard or setback. So they're really going another 2 feet beyond that. But more importantly than that, it's above ground. So it's not really going to be, the functional open yard on the ground floor will not be impacted at all by the addition of the balcony. So we also believe that it will not in any way impact neighbors, just given the interior, that it's an interior courtyard and is not something that's visible to neighbors. As you know, with what is Chris?
We're on your item right now.
So I'm just giving a little background presentation of the balcony. So anyway, we normally allow decks and patios to encroach into the open yard when they're 36 inches and below. So we really feel that this is not an encroachment into the functional open yard, and that it's so minor in nature that it will have no impact to either the open yard itself or to any of the adjacent neighbors. So we recommend supporting it.
Okay, and then to clarify, the reason why this first floor addition isn't considered an encroachment is because the existing second floor is already blocking it in that area.
Right.
Would you like to state your name for the record and provide additional comments?
My name is Chris Denzel, and do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, I don't either.
Okay. All right. Great, thanks. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 3761 Lincoln Road? No, see no one. Did we receive any?
No.
And this went to ABR, or sorry, single family full board, right? Not consent, or was it?
I believe they went to full board because there was additions. Let's see what the minutes.
The minutes just have it. It's just locked and moved.
I think it was consent.
Given the
quite
minor
sure. I met with two
Okay.
people here
that
prior,
would've been
so
consent?
Yeah, that was consent. Okay.
yeah.
The only reason why I asked, just because it is a second-story balcony, but like Betsy said, it's all in the interior.
It's interior.
And it's, very minor encroachment. And it doesn't affect the usability of your open yard area. And it actually provides a little additional space for the outdoors. So I agree with staff's recommendation. It says findings and conditions. There's no conditions. I don't think I need to add any. I would just like to add a sentence in the findings to clarify why it's supportable, is that the last sentence, it starts, the proposed second floor balcony is appropriate because it meets the purpose and intent of providing usable outdoor living area on the lot, comma, does not affect adjacent parcels, comma, and does not functionally reduce the non-conforming open yard area contained within the existing courtyard. I just want to add that minor change. So make the findings as I revised it at the hearing and approve your project. My action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day review period, and if that was to occur, Betsy would contact you.
Great. Thank
Okay?
you.
Great,
Have
sure.
a good day. Bye.
You too. We'll do an email. You'll probably get it by the end of the week. If you haven't heard anything, contact the show secretary. The next item is 725 Olive Street. If the applicant wants to come up, the staff person will be here shortly. Suzanne, get her.
Hi.
Okay, good morning. So this application is at 725 Olive Street. There's the existing site plan. The existing property is developed with an existing one-story single-family residence with a detached three-car garage in the rear and interior setbacks. The proposal involves adding a new second-story unit above this existing unit. This parcel, or the existing unit, is approximately 3 inches into the required 6-foot interior setback on this southerly side. And as a result of the proposal, it will demolish this existing non-conforming 3-car garage with a storage area and will provide a 2-car carport, which will conform to the required 3-foot interior setback, and 2 uncovered spaces that comply with the required 3-foot interior setbacks. The discretionary application for this project is an interior setback modification to allow the addition and alterations within this 3-foot or 6-foot interior setback here. The project was reviewed by the Architectural Board of Review and had positive comments. There was a couple letters received. Have you noted those letters?
I received an
Or
email.
one email
This is the
that was
applicant's letter.
concerned with regards to the whether a proposed fence will be proposed on this interior property line due to the configuration of the new uncovered parking spaces in this location. The applicant did not present that, so I will leave that to you guys to discuss at that time. And let's see. Staff is supportive of the requested modification for a number of reasons. Primarily, the overall project will provide a more conforming property in all, as earlier stated, the existing parcels non-conforming to 3 required setbacks. And the proposal will just result in a non-conforming area within 3 inches of the required interior setback on the southerly side, providing conforming setbacks in these two setbacks. So staff recommends the staff hearing officer approve the project subject to the findings outlined in the report. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I was noticing on the ABR minutes, it says comments only requires environmental assessment, a waiver of the parking design standards, and staff hearing officer review. What waiver did they need?
Oh, most likely for the parking within the interior setback. If you have parking within an interior setback, typically they require the landscaping or fencing.
Yeah, so then what, can you state your name for the record? And
Tom Sanchez, contractor, owner.
Tom? And what's your name?
Eileen Davis.
Can you tell me what the waiver is? The waiver of the parking design standards? Do you know what they were
No.
looking at? Because if the setback requirement's 3 feet, are you proposing a? Oh,
Sorry, I'm late.
we started the meeting late and everyone's been late. Confuse everyone. What's your name?
Edward Darris.
Okay. Michelle had given her staff presentation, and so it was actually at your part to give a presentation.
Okay.
But I did have a question of Michelle, and she wasn't quite sure, and I was just wondering if you knew what waiver of the parking design standards was necessary. What I'm referring to is the ABR minutes where it says comments only requires environmental assessment, a waiver of the parking design standards, and staff hearing officer review.
I believe we meet all the standards, so I don't think that is. That's the first time I've ever heard that there was any parking that was going to be a problem or a waiver.
Design standard. Okay, well, if you want to, they're looking at
Oh, you know what that might have been referring to? Initially, I believe the uncovered parking space was closer to the property line and did not, you see the highlighted 3-foot dimension?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was more like 2 feet at that point.
Okay.
And so we moved it back to the 3 and reduced that impact on that property line. I believe that's probably what it was referring to.
Okay. Yeah, that would have required a modification.
Yeah, and
too.
3 feet doesn't require it in the, I believe that's probably what it was.
Okay. All right. Do you want to provide any additional comments on the project?
Yes, I would like to make one comment because I got an email from the city of one of the concerned neighbors, I believe, on the northern side adjacent to the property. And basically, the walls that are at the perimeter of the rear of the site were going to stay in place. The large or tall chain link fence on the parking lot side of the housing development is like an 8 or 10 foot that was established and built on their side of the property line. Mm-hmm. This wood fence that comes right in here dies down about right here, and then the rest of this fence basically along this area here is on this side of was constructed on this parcel here. So we're going to maintain this fence all the way back in here. Hopefully that stays in place during demolition, and if not, we will rebuild this back to its existing character and right now, so it doesn't kind of become introducing a new element to the property. We want to maintain whatever's here, and then we'll provide and put it back in here. Now this is a site wall basically, and the existing framing kind of sits on it. So we're going to jack up all of this framing up in here during the demo and lift it off and separate it from that wall. Okay. And we're hoping that this wall stays in place, and if it does not, we rebuild it in kind. Okay. And would be plastered just like it is, and then that would go ahead and alleviate us from having to put up new fencing all the way around. So we're going to go ahead and try to make sure that everything can stay intact. If not, we will rebuild in kind. Okay. To the same characteristics, materials, and heights that were established already. Mm-hmm. So okay. we don't want to increase anything or enlarge the scope at all.
Okay. That's good clarification. Did you have any other comments, Dad?
I think that was the only one that I had received as of yesterday.
Okay. All right, so I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 725 Olive Street? No, like I said, I received the same email that you referred to from the neighbor.
Okay. That's what I was.
Or agent for the owners at 727 and 729 Olive Street. So I'll close the public hearing. I went out and visited the site, and originally I was concerned, with the fact you're going 2 stories in the setback and what kind of windows are there, because second stories and windows have the potential to cause negative effects to the adjacent property. But when you go out there and you look what the existing development is in the area, it's parking lot here, and there's a parking lot up in this area, I think, with a house. And so I think given the existing development surrounding the property, that it is an appropriate improvement. And also it's the fact it's just 3 inches. So 3 inches, that's not a significant encroachment. And, you couldn't even tell. So I agree that in this instance it makes sense to go flush up with the wall, and that it is an appropriate request.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I am going to, for the
situation on the fence. Lowered.
Oh, I had already done that because I resubmitted new sets of plans.
okay.
It's
Yeah.
noted on there. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, it's right there.
Yeah.
Note for the height, 42 inches, maximum 10 feet back from the property. Right there.
Because you told us when we were out there that we had to
Yeah.
have this area right here 10 feet back.
Prior to submitting the project, they had constructed a fence in this location, and it was about 5 feet up to the property line. So we just noted that as part of this project, it'll be conditioned, and they'll reduce it to a maximum 42 inches in height.
Okay. Okay, so then what I was saying regarding the project description, I'm just going to clarify what the discretionary application is. What it says now is discretionary application required for this project is an interior setback modification to allow an addition and increase in roof height located within the required 6-foot interior setback. Really what it is to allow the addition of a second story in the setback. So I'm just going to clarify and say that, because that's really what it is. Yeah, you're changing the roof height, but it's because there's a second story there. So, and then you read the condition that staff's proposing regarding if it's demolished beyond which is shown, then you'll have to come in and talk to staff to see if your modification is still valid.
I was not really clear on that. Could I get some interpolation on that?
Yeah. So essentially, as part of this project, staff was supportive of the project because the existing residence was proposed to remain. If the entire existing residence was going to be demolished, we would find the support. It'd be more likely to just build at the 6-foot required setback rather than rebuilding it at 5'9".
Gotcha. Our intent is to leave the lower unit intact as much as possible. The only work that will be done in there would be probably anything that would have to do with structural engineering, running things from the second level down to grade.
Yeah, I think I read a shear wall or something you were talking about in here.
And that's kind of why we're asking for the 3 inches, so we can align that wall up and just make it real clean and easy for all involved and whatnot. We kind of do a box framing type of thing where we can get the perimeter to be established and then just frame across and kind of moment framing in there. So that's what our intent is.
So that was also one of the reasons I asked for an existing floor plan and demo floor plan, and they didn't. They just provided the existing floor plan and then the original elevations, or the original building footprint, to show that they're not changing this configuration of the lower unit.
And until we get the final engineering, we won't know what type of improvements we're going to be running from top to bottom. So we will definitely, when it come in for building and safety, all that will be, on the plan, because it'll have all the structural.
All right.
And staff just noticed a couple minor interior changes, like a door being
Oh, and
removed
that's
and
fine,
all.
yeah.
Currently this goes that.
Yeah, so
Right.
That's fine. It's all interior in terms of my concerns with the zoning and stuff.
Just one other thing I wanted to note, maybe for the record, for the alterations was the windows. It wasn't clear when I was doing the presentation. I didn't believe that any of the windows were changing on that lower elevation, but this is the proposed elevation within this setback, and then the existing elevation. So there might, I have to clarify, there might be a couple minor window changes down below, or were you going to leave those all existing?
These actually have been changed out to match the existing in the front and the other side at this point. I think I might have had it on 8 here. This window has been changed out as well. That's a kitchen window right now, which is an old louver that was inoperable, which is basically what happened on the outside one right here, these two.
That's this current south elevation with windows and then just a minor alteration.
That's actually the as-built that I did showing the characteristics of the windows as they exist right now.
Okay, so those will remain as they
Yes.
are today.
So we should probably clarify this, that an as-built window changes, just so it's clear.
Already as-built changes and as-built changes to remain.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, being the first floor window changes, that's not a real concern. So with that, I can make the finding that's outlined in the staff report and approve your project subject to the condition that was contained in the staff report. And my actions appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. And they also have oversight authority of all my actions. And if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period. And if either of those would occur, Michelle would contact you.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is 952 Alameda Padre Sierra. If the applicants would like to come up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Zipping right along here.
Yeah, it doesn't take real long since it's just one of me and it's not a full board. So, and if you figure if there's 7 of them and there's 5 people talking, that takes up a lot of time. Or 7 people and 5 minutes talking.
So the project proposed at 952 Alameda Padre Sierra is to permit an as-built patio and outdoor barbecue, outdoor kitchen, at a countertop, refrigerator, range, gas burner, and she has me on mute. Sorry. And a table that has a fire feature in it.
Those are your stuff report, the picture.
Yeah, I have one here too, which is this table here. And if you're looking at the site plan, it's basically right where the line cuts through. The existing outdoor kitchen encroaches 100% into the side yard setback. It's within inches of the interior property line. The fire feature table is about 7 feet from the interior property line. The project requires a front setback modification because there is a 30-foot front yard setback in the E1 zone and a interior setback modification because there are as-built improvements that encroach into the required 10-foot interior setback. I've highlighted those setbacks in purple just so you can see where the setbacks occur. When you look at topography of the subject lot or the subject lots, these 2 lots are the parcel. It is a pretty steep grade. And when you look at the front of the house, you can see that there's probably greater than 1 foot rise and 5 foot horizontal. There is a provision in the ordinance that does allow for a 5 foot reduction of that front setback if they provide a slope study of the front half of the lot. that shows that it meets that 1 foot rise and 5 foot horizontal, and that would reduce the setback to 25 feet. So looking back at the site plan, you can see I have a red mark here, and this is about where 25 feet is. So that deck is clearly would be outside of that 25-foot setback. So staff is very supportive of the front setback encroachment because they believe if they had provided that study, it would have shown that they qualify for the 5-foot reduction in the front setback. The interior setback modification, again, is a 0-foot setback. Staff did have some original concerns with the location, which is pretty close to the neighbor's fence. These are a couple of pictures. I'm looking for the one that I want. But when you look at the neighbor's property below, and you can see, I gave you the wrong one. If you look at this picture, you can see these posts where the wood railing is going to go in between, and then this fence post here. You can see there's considerable drop in grade between the subject property and the neighboring property at 944 APS. This is a view from the property at 944 APS, which is the neighbor over here. And if you look really faintly, you can see the top of the counter through the fence. But we actually tested this out, and we had somebody about 5.5 feet stand over behind the kitchen, and you cannot see, either party cannot see the other from that location. This is just another picture from the 944 APS looking up towards that wooden fence that's seen beyond the barbecue here. This is the top of that wooden fence. We talked to fire about the location, and I just had that email. We had Amber Anderson go out in the field, and they stated that as long as there was at least 15 feet clearance from the outdoor kitchen to the tree, and there's a tree right there dashed in, that they could find this acceptable. 10 to 15 foot clearance, I'm sorry. And succulent plants could be located closer than that to the fire features. So we did review that with fire. There are 5 letters of support that were included in your packet as Exhibit E of the staff report. They're all the adjacent neighbors, and they have supported the project as is. I believe you have some pictures in your possession there that show what the deck looked like prior to this construction when they acquired the property. So there was always a deck there of some sort. It had a wood railing. The wood railing did not meet building code height as a safety guardrail. So the guardrail on the proposed deck is to code. It will meet the 42-inch requirement. Can we go back to the site plan? And I mentioned this as the last item because we're reviewing this all as one parcel. But there are 2 parcels. And then there's this 5-foot wide strip of land that's approximately 906 square feet of land that when you look at the APN maps, does not belong to either parcel. However, when you look on our geospatial browser, which is a tool we commonly use here at the city, it does not show that 5-foot gap. So in doing a more thorough plan check, we discovered this 5-foot gap, and the applicant team has pursued a quiet title action to acquire that 5-foot strip of land. If they were not able to acquire that land, staff has added conditions in the staff report that the modification would become null and void, and what items would need to be removed from each of the remaining parcels. So their plan is to acquire this land and go obtain a voluntary lot merger, which is a ministerial action, not a discretionary action, and it's listed in the page, the description of the project. And then they will apply for a building permit, and the building permit will not be issued until we have receipt of that voluntary merger with the proof of the judgment. I understand it's not a quick claim, it's a judgment of the court, that they would receive the land or not. I don't know that I have anything more to add. The applicant team may have more to add. But with that, staff is recommending support of the improvements as it is, subject to the conditions of approvals and making the findings in the staff report.
Okay, great, thanks. Would you like to state your name for the record and provide additional comments?
Certainly. Mindy Wolf, representative for the applicant, Gail Fisher, who's the owner at 952 Alameda Padre Sierra. I also have Jeremy Scarlett, who is the landscape contractor architect representing those features and elements. I think the staff report actually did it really well. This has been really, really long in the making. We have had numerous conversations with Scott Vincent and the land agents here at the city trying to resolve this 5-foot strip. It was an anomaly. It was something that giving you the full year history isn't necessary, especially at how quick the agenda's moving. No need to get into the whole history. But in the process of this, the city alerted the owner to this issue of the 5-foot strip for the first time.
Was it on the title report?
We made a title claim, and we won on our title claim and got money. That's how confusing this has been.
Wow.
It was something where if you walk out the back door, if this strip does not associate with these properties, you literally have a fence, like the door might bump into the fence. It's
That's what I noticed when I was out there, trying to visualize where the strip was. It's like, it's almost...
It doesn't make
it
doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. Importantly, for you, as far as how this is laid out and what happened, and this is where I get really excited because I'm a land use lawyer. I love the history of it. Historically, when the first subdivision map happened, this strip was associated with Maxine, who's here. She's going to speak. She's the property owner at 944. This little strip was associated with her parcel, and the property line was here. This lot, as well as Maxine's lot and several other lots, were transferred in bulk amongst various developer entities. Eventually, the designer architect of the whole project took this lot for himself. His name's Delafonso. When he did, he took this. He without compliance with Subdivision Map Act, that's how we won our title claim. He just had them deed off this little bit of property because it naturally is the patio space for this. Because of the steep topography, there's nowhere else to enjoy the views of the Riviera. But this guy, who is he's a partner in the development, took this as his patio area. When you were out there, it made logical sense that because this next lot drops off so severely, it never made sense to draw the line here. We are at the Superior Court. We've got city attorney approval for release of this strip. We've gone back to, you can imagine, right, the cost and expense that has gone into this, the original developer to get their resolve on this strip. There's a huge machine working behind me that says this strip will get resolved in favor of Ms. Fisher as it should have been at the time when this developer willy-nilly did what it did in violation of the Subdivision Map Act. So really, and what you'll hear Ms. Maxine say, who's lived here forever, this has always been used as an outdoor dining area. It's always been used for the enjoyment of the amazing, magnificent views. It is the value in the property to have this outside area here. And it has for, let me look at my notes so I just make sure I say the number, 61 years, this area has been associated with the property for outdoor use, just like we're planning. We're not changing its use from the last 61 years. We are enhancing it. We're making it nicer because the old decking that you actually, you stepped on it. Well, this has got these pavers, but there used to be wood decking there that feet went through. And the railing that's being replaced that was above the block wall that's remaining had termites. You could poke a pencil through it. I mean, so we're just trying to make beautiful and nice what has been there forever. So the fire department, there were lots of concerns about fire because this is a high fire hazard area. Fortunately, Amber Anderson from the fire department went out, measured, did some things, made some requests, and everything's, we're good to go on all of that because it's logical to have it stay associated as the patio space. Do you have questions for us?
No, at this time, no.
Great.
Actually, how do you spell your last name?
2 T's, Scarlett.
Okay. Thanks. Can you hand me the rest? I'd like to open the public hearing. I have a speaker slip from Maxine Decker. Would you like to come up? The seats are low. Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Maxine Decker, and I live directly to the east of Gale at 944 APS. I have lived there for 42 years. The next door patio is Gale's patio is the same footprint that it's been for those 42 years that I have been there, and it is being used for the same type of purposes and so forth. Just wanted to make one remark about when you said you could see the person through the fence. That's only because of the fig on my fence died because of the drought. Otherwise, you couldn't see anything through there. But
Can the city do something about that? Can you guys get us some rain?
I'm trying.
I wish maybe they'd say Halloween. Maybe
Right.
It's just being upgraded terrifically with what Gale is doing over there, but it has no effect on my patio at all. My patio's right next to it, but my patio is down. There's a drop, considerable drop from Gale's place. That's why that fence is up there. So that's about what I have to say. I mean, it's just going to be beautiful when it's finished.
Okay, great. Thank you. I don't see anyone else in the audience. And did we receive any additional, besides what was included in the staff report, any additional comments?
I have not received any phone calls or additional letters.
Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. Like I said, I went out to the site and looked at the area, looked at the surrounding neighborhood and what's adjacent to it. And I agree that it's the most appropriate place for a deck. You have a view property, you want to enjoy that view. So then the question is, the type of improvement that you're proposing, is that kind of thing appropriate? And when I look at the decking and the walls, and that I find that is appropriate. I don't have any concerns with the deck. The part of the project I have concerns with is the counter, the barbecue, the countertop, and that is built right on the property line. That's a substantial request that there's not any separation provided between the two. And one of the things when you look at a modification request, it's not just because someone wants it, I want it there, it's why can't it be provided somewhere else? There's this nice patio area, there's adequate area outside of the setback, and so why can't it be provided somewhere else out and conform to the requirements? That's my question.
Okay, great. And some of it has to do with the proximity to the house. If we were to shift it around, because I did have the conversation about could we shift it around over here, but of course you've got this issue of getting it outside the 10 feet. It'd be pretty hard to squish it in here next to where the house is. And of course, the property, there's natural rocks and barriers that prevent it from shifting much closer to this direction. One thing to keep in mind is that we understand from title report review is that this 10 feet between the property line and Maxine's, well, it's about, you see, it's 15 feet, so you help me out here with what the math is doing. There is a utility easement through here, so there will never be anything closer in the future. They're not going to be able to, no one would ever be able to build on Maxine's property in that 10 feet due to the existence, A, of the topography, and then B, of this utility easement. So it feels as if that concept of having that setback, that buffer, exists, albeit on Maxine's property. But of course, when she bought the property, she was aware that there was, that wouldn't be able to be built on it because topography, naturally, it can't be built on. So that buffer of 10 feet that the code is encouraging in order to have
both
that.
properties, not just on one.
Right. Well, and it's 15 feet. So if we think about the improvements, the buffer between improvements and what we're calling, you're calling an outdoor kitchen, it's clearly, if we 15, it's about 45 feet from the house. Well, 40 feet from the house. Can anyone help me with that?
Here, I have a scale. You can scale
it. The answer is it feels as if because of the topography change and because of the setback and because of the review, I mean, we've had, I think, 4 different staff members come out to the property, that concern about the appropriateness can be found because of the topography change and the natural barriers that make it feel more separate than what it is. Also because the use, whether it's a permanent counter or it's a folding table, the answer is that all these years, for 61 years, this area has been used for the exact same thing. Now it's got a very nice,
permanent structure in the setback.
Permanent structure in the setback that suits the same purpose as, and you're right, so I guess that's kind of the mystery, right? Does having it be permanent call people out there more and change its use? And, we've heard from Maxine that it was always used for that outdoor. That space will always call for people to come and congregate out there, whether or not the property owner is required to pull a folding table out every time and set it up there, or have the ability to have this very nice, enhanced, beautiful permanent countertop. I mean, that's where it's at your discretion, but the neighbors, the staff.
I'm not concerned about the congregation effect because you can use your interior setback. Just because there's a setback there, it doesn't mean, whoa, you can't stand in there, you can't talk in there. I don't have concerns with that.
Right.
You're putting a permanent structure right on the property line, and I don't really see the necessity for it. I feel there's other areas it could be provided. This one, I don't have a concern with this. It's just a minor, maybe 3-foot encroachment. But this right on the property line, I don't believe that's appropriate.
Where do you see that it could fit? Because
I'm not a designer.
Okay.
I don't design people's projects.
Okay, so let me just roll it back a teeny bit on the history of what happened, because before, and just I think this will absolutely help, because of the historic context, because of the belief not only that they owned this, but actually there was some belief historically on behalf of Ms. Fisher that this 10-foot area was also part of this property. There's a lot of confusion as to property lines up there. There was confusion because of the severe drop-off and because of the existing fence here.
Yes.
So when this was put in, when the idea of, hey, let's put this here came up, no one designed it in the setback. I guess that's what I'm trying to translate historically for you today, is that it was never designed in the setback. No one ever said, ooh, let's maximize our space and push it right up against it. They actually thought that they had the setback here. They thought they were complying with it. The confusion comes from the existence of this fence, and Ms. Fisher's predecessor had a potting bench out here, had used this as her own. Okay, so Maxine's just echoing, yes, she did, because everyone believed that this was the property line. So there was a mistake that was made when this thing started without going through the process, and the mistake came from the fact that, unfortunately, Ms. Fisher went out of the country for work for a month, was gone. Work started, and there was a question whether a gas line that laid on the ground that didn't, there was a question whether a permit was even required. When the issue came up and the city alerted, hey, you need a permit for this, Ms. Fisher was out of town when that letter came. She got home, checked her mail that night after being gone for a month, found the letter, and showed up the next morning and called Jeremy, said, stop all work. Oh my gosh, this is an issue. Had no idea. Came in, there's evidence. She came in that morning and said, what's going on? What did we do? Not even realizing it was in the setback. So to the extent that you're observing, gosh, would this normally be appropriate in the setback? Maybe not, but unfortunately, because of the course of the misunderstanding of the property line, historically, everyone thought that was the property line. Because of this weird 5-foot thing, which has cost tens of thousands of dollars to try to fix, this project has morphed and changed its monster head. Here we are in Halloween. We can talk about monsters. Consequently, because of its long history, because of the way the property has historically been used, because of the understanding of both neighbors until this survey was done, until this all blew up, because the improvements are 3/4 constructed there, we are asking for modification. We understand it's a request. We understand it's discretionary, but it's there. It's beautiful. The neighbor likes it. Money's been invested, and there's been tens of thousands of dollars invested now trying to just make it right.
Yeah, but the thing, if it would have come in for a permit originally, at least this would have been settled, that you would have known this is the property line.
You're probably right. You're probably, without question, of course you're right. But it didn't, and we're just trying to fix
Well, actually, we're trying to fix a
But
mistake after
my
mistake
finding
after
isn't,
mistake.
my finding isn't, oh, it's already there, I'm going to approve the
Of course
project.
not.
I need to apply the same standards I would apply if it was coming in fresh. And if it
Fair
was
enough.
coming in fresh, I have a concern with it being right on the property line.
Okay, and I guess you're going to have to take it under your own consideration of every adjacent neighbor supporting it. The immediate neighbor taking her time today to come and say it's good and fine on the property line. Because of the topography change, you can extrapolate a larger setback in physicality than you would on with the measuring stick. You can extract a larger setback because of its topography and its natural separateness. It's there to find. If you want to find it today, you can say, fine, it's acceptable because of this topography change. You can say that today. You can say, even though it's right on the setback and it's a permanent countertop, it's acceptable because the natural topography supports it and leads it to a more natural division than what physically is there.
And it has the barbecue, it has all, it's not just a countertop. It's not just like a permanent table, it has,
You're
the
right,
cooking facilities.
and you and I both know that anyone owner going forward in the future could wheel a barbecue over there and put it there, and they could even without a permit come and make little bricks. We're just trying to do it right. We're trying to make sure everything gets done right this time because of how many mistakes has this property. So I mean, this is insane, right? We had to make a title claim and so forth. There's so many mistakes on this property that Gail Fisher, when she bought it, had no idea about. There's no way she could have known this wasn't the property line. There's no way she could have known she had a crazy 5-foot gap. And now we're trying to fix and remedy these all really today. The modification gets granted today. She still has to go back to single-family design. The only comment, single-family design consent, we had to go to consent calendar, was, I don't know if you've heard this, but they don't let glass panels because of the dolphins and the whales. Have you heard this?
no, but I have a reflective, because of the reflective nature of it.
Yeah, exactly. The reflective nature, they say it affects the animals. So that we've addressed their only comment on any of the design elements. They had no comments as to design or where else it might go. They were fine with where it was a what's it called, a cable railing, right, instead of the glass. And so Ms. Fisher was absolutely happy to make that adjustment. Hadn't heard the reflectiveness was a problem, and that was the only comment design had. So the design folks did not have a problem with how the design was or where it was located.
Because they're just design related.
Right. So the designers felt like when they saw the site plan, when they saw the photos, when they saw how this was designed, they felt like this was a good and appropriate design for this setting. And I do think because Ms. Maxine is here, because she's the most immediately affected neighbor, you can make the finding that the topography allows this permanent structure in the setback because it's consistent with how other properties are developed along the way. And of course, there's that trickiness of setback out, but because the topography is so severely different, were you able to walk over to Maxine's property?
I can't walk on other people's property without permission, so
Okay.
I looked.
Oh, you peeked over. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just standing from Maxine's patio.
And there's pictures here that was submitted too.
Okay, perfect. It really is a separateness that is unique. It's not universal, and we know this is not a typical modification that's granted, but this is unique. How often is there I think, well, I'm 5'3", and it was taller than me. Is there a natural 6-foot topography difference between two neighbors? This is unique that way. Rarely are you going to find that. If we were on the same plane and we were trying to build something right on the property line, the other patio was right on the other side, I can see that that's a bad standard to make, but we're not. And with the buildup on Maxine's side, she has these rocks and there's a tree and there's some things going on that push away from that property line even more. Everyone thought this fence was the property line from all 61 years worth of 61 years, and that's this where I've got the ruler, of course. This is this fence line here. And then of course if I take the marker and I go like this, and we kind of try to extrapolate, there's that 10-foot gap that could never be built on ever, not only because of topography, but because of the utility easement. So because of the history, the topography, because of the setback of these improvements and the inability to ever do anything different with them, the finding of modification can be supportable for this permanent structure because it's consistent with how it's always been used. And the permanent structure enhances it. It makes it beautiful. And yes, some mistakes were made. There's no question about it. And we're not asking you to say good mistakes. We're just asking not to create more issues with a an attempt to redesign something that's actually designed very nicely to fit the space. Did you have a comment?
Well, I just have some questions, really. It's Jeremy Scarlett, Scarlett's Landscape. So is the deck not considered a permanent structure, just the barbecue island?
I'm fine with the deck.
Okay, but that's a permanent structure, you would say?
It's not an obstruction.
Obstruction. Okay, I'm just trying to understand. So that's the problem, is there's an obstruction close to the property line.
That's what causes the modification.
Right. No, I understand that. I guess I'm trying to understand your concern of it being built right there. What would possibly happen?
What in the future could happen that would be?
I don't think a barbecue cooking facility, that type of thing, is appropriate in the setback. Yes, people can wheel their barbecue in and out. That's fine. They can do that. It doesn't regulate it. Having something built right on the property line when there is room, you can put it somewhere else. And I agree, it's designed very nicely, but it's not appropriate for this location.
The distance from this corner of the outdoor kitchen to Maxine's house and the fire table to Maxine's house is approximately 23 feet, which gives you that 10-foot.
10 foot on both sides.
I know it's at the property line, but you were asking for that number, and I actually had it in my staff report.
Thank you. I hadn't done that math.
I don't know if that changes any of your...
I don't feel it's appropriate. I don't see a hardship or something that calls this property out different from another property. Why some setback can't even be provided? Why does it need to be? I can understand the desire, but I don't understand the need. And I'm looking at it in terms of the zoning ordinance requirements and the findings, and I don't see the necessity of it to be in that area.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I guess we're just trying to maximize the space. I mean, when you look at the footprint of what we've designed, of course, we could design something smaller, but you really got to plan for. Sure,
he wants us.
You know, we're trying to maximize seating space. So we created this bar here to bring chairs all the way around. So really, you got to plan on another 2 feet outside of here. When I just measured it right now, really the footprint of the kitchen that we've built is 12 by 12, and I don't know where else that would fit. In this area, we just don't have the space.
Unless it was right up against the back door,
yeah,
right?
Well, yeah, and this is a walkway this is your egress, into the whole yard. So we're trying to stuff it in the corner so that we can maximize, we're trying to get this is our table and chairs area here. So, I mean, you always want to try to maximize your space by, if we can get something in a corner and create more open space, that's what we're trying to do. If we had to put this structure out in the middle, you're really killing, there's really no room to put your table and chairs or anything. Unless we created something really small. And we had talked originally about putting it on the edge right here, but we didn't want it looking from the street to be looking at the back of the barbecue island, so we turned it this way so that from the street it all looked the same.
Well, I don't think you're going to be able to see that. It's screened from the street.
Well, now it is because it's tucked back. But if the counter ran along here, outside of the setback, if it had gone here instead with maybe just that little bit in the counter,
solid wall.
Then from the street and from looking up, you would have seen the entirety of it. Versus now, you just are going to see this the cable railing, which will be open.
And we're trying not to block the view. If we put the barbecue there and people were sitting back, you were blocking the view looking down. Yeah. So we were trying to maximize the view from this area by not blocking this right here. Mm-hmm. It's like you said, that's the value in this property, is being able to stand anywhere and see the view. That's why we swung the bar out this way, so that these people sitting here can see the view, the person here cooking can see the view, all these people on the fire pit can see the view, and the table and chairs.
Which they may all be very well the same people.
Yeah.
All come from different vantage points.
Right. But building it along here would have blocked that view.
We'll have to ask Maxine which seat she wants when she comes over. I know that you're struggling with finding a need, and I'm not sure. And I wish I had your requirement for finding, because I'm not sure necessity is the basis for modification. Is the word necessity? It's necessary. It's necessary to suit the purposes of an outdoor eating space. And I just wanted to get away a little bit from. I keep hearing it's not necessary. It's not necessary. Well, you're right. We could take it all out and have a deck and have none of it, but that's why we've paid thousands of dollars to get here today to a modification to say we want a modification because we like this feature because it's an enhancement. And at the time it was built, and I know we're not talking about that, but even if even if we came to you fresh today with absolute unanimous neighbor support, with absolute fire department sign off, with staff support, and said, we want this because it's good and right where it is, because you can't fit a 12 by 12 anywhere else. If you tried to put it over here outside of the setback, you would be right up against the front door, and because of these rocks, we want to not build right up on the rocks. We want to leave that as a natural feature. I'm sure you saw that, right? How this is a natural landscaping feature. It is better here, and we're asking for it here because it's better there. It is designed better there than if it was shoved outside and squished right up against the house. And that's the benefit for her owning that parcel. So necessary? No, it's not. We can't, no one could sit here and go, it's necessary that this definitely be on the setback. It's not, but it's better in the setback. It's designed better, it looks better, and it doesn't adversely impact anyone. So a modification can be found on that basis of it suits the site and is consistent based, as the staff report says, and Ms. Regal says, it's consistent with the neighborhood and it doesn't adversely impact anyone. So
I think the deck's consistent with the neighborhood. I'm not sure barbecue area and the interior setback's consistent with the neighborhood.
Okay.
But in terms of neighborhood support, that's great. That's an element that I take into consideration, that the neighbors are supportive of it. I'm supportive of the deck area and fencing and stuff too. I can't get there to support the barbecue area. I can support this part, but I can't support that part.
Okay. Well, I can let you know the context of the history is that we did a pre-consult. We made some efforts with city staff to make sure, because to be honest, we proceeded down the path of resolving this 5-foot strip based on the supportability of the structure by city staff, and that it was appropriate and could be found not necessary but supportable because of its.
And you know their role, right?
I know
they do that, and then I'm the discretion.
I know, and then I know that our appeal process is the Planning Commission, which unfortunately it sounds like you're suggesting we're going to have to go to, because there's no way that I could have ever advised my clients to move forward with a quiet title, with a resolve of the 5-foot strip, with this process, if we did not feel that, because of the unanimous neighborhood support, because of its distinctness, because of everyone's treating as if this is the which I know it's not, but treating it like it's the property line, the 20-foot division between the improvements from either side, essentially giving you that the spirit of the law of having that separateness for comfort, and that's what you're protecting. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to protect that separateness of improvements so that going forward we don't have that conflict, and we believe that exists. And so that would be our position with the Planning Commission, is that we believe that separateness and that division that the spirit of the zoning ordinance is trying to have by having that setback is found in this project. And that's why I encouraged her to come today. We went through this process because we do believe it's supportable. And would love for you to make that finding today that is supportable, so we don't have to take that extra step, because it's honestly, you and I are civilians, like the amount of money that's being spent is unbelievable. But otherwise, I would never, if I thought for even in a second that the modification was not appropriate, I would have said, let's just tear it down and you got to start over. But we do believe it is supportable, and that's why we had Maxine come and Jeremy, and that's why we've had everybody working on this project.
Well, I think it would be a good issue to discuss with the Planning Commission. There's 7 of them, get 7 opinions.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just can't get there.
Okay. So your findings will be specific as to what is acceptable and what you find unacceptable, right?
The findings will be that I won't be, it doesn't say what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. It's a response to the application before us. But I will have findings, yes.
Okay.
And then in regards to the findings, with the first finding where it talks about the appropriateness of the front setback modification, I want to change it. I don't think it's appropriate to have in the finding that if the applicant would have provided this information, it would have shown that that it's a 5-foot less reduction. So I would want to change that to recognize the fact that because of the grade change, because of the railings, that it wouldn't be visible from the street. And so instead of saying, where it says due to steep topography, it appears that the property would qualify for a 5-foot setback reduction and would not require modification if slope calculation had been provided to staff.
I don't think I have.
Page 4. Yeah, right here in this one. So go 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down where it says single family residence, and then the period that says due to the.
Yep.
Okay, that's the sentence I'm talking about, where it says, due to the steep topography, it appears that the property would qualify for a 5-foot setback reduction and would not require a modification if the slope calculated had been provided by staff. I just want to cut that out and just recognize the steep topography, the proposed wall, and that it is not going to be visible from the street.
So you are making the finding that
I'm approving the front setback modification. The thought being, the improvements here, that's okay. If you wanted to redesign it and move it over and it's still within the front setback, that's still approved. In regards to the interior setback, I approve everything that's proposed except for the counter, this area. So the little deck, the little
file table.
File table, that's what it's called.
Yep.
Improving that interior setback modification.
So built-in barbecue, range burner, countertop.
Yeah.
And that's just a portable unit, so that's not even a permanent.
I know this is why that. I know it's okay.
There's not really anything in the interior setback. If we're taking this out, there's
I'm sorry. This is a side yard setback. The interior, the only thing in the interior is this little bit of counter. So that's the funny part.
I guess there's no.
Well, no, this is front. This is front, and this is interior. In the single-family zone, there's no.
The only thing in the interior setback that you're even saying is okay is literally possibly 3 feet of that counter right there. That's
what the notice says. So then, Suzanne, clarify because the notice is saying.
Well, you can look at the front yard setback and see that there's nothing in it but one teeny bit corner of that counter. That's it. I mean, that's why we had such confusion about the front yard setback.
But in your improvements, you're listing. So this is not built in. That table is.
I understood,
but we don't.
The table's not built in.
I understood that there was a gas line coming out that was connecting to it, so it's going to make it permanent.
Of course, it could be made propane and not need a permit at all, guys.
Correct.
I mean, this is why.
That's fine.
Yeah, but
That's
I'm just
fine.
saying. It's a gas line, and you're okay with the gas line. When I'm saying front yard setback, this modification, if you look at the front yard, we literally are talking about.
Okay, so then I'll even deny the front setback modification then. So then
because and your reasoning is because it's the countertop that you don't think any counter in any setback's appropriate, right? Is that what? Because that's that counter in the front. You're saying because what I thought I heard you saying was that the counter in the front setback would be fine, but now you're saying it's not. Did I misunderstand you? You said if it was built across here, it would have been fine.
Well, I was saying, yes, I was saying it's fine there, but then you're arguing, saying that it's not proven setback, why any setback, then why do you have it there? So it's like, well, then I can just deny all of it. I was giving options that if it wants to be redesigned in some way, so.
Long ways, okay.
Yeah, to move the grill away from the property line, that would give you some leeway.
But it would have to be 10 feet off, guys, that's all. She's saying it would have to be entirely out of the interior
No, I think she's saying we can build it right here.
No, because, are you? I mean, are you saying it's okay in the side interior setback if it's there instead of here?
You're not offering that to me. If you're to offer to provide some kind of setback from the property line, that would be something I'd entertain. But you're going forward with this project right here, and I cannot support this. And it may be clear just to deny the whole thing and appeal the whole thing to planning commission. Or we could
continue and try to get something that's supportable. We're just trying to get ideas because we're trying to understand what the concern is.
Yes, you could ask for continuance and ask for and change it to move this away from the property line somehow.
We're trying to understand from you what's supportable.
No, it doesn't have to be 10 feet.
How far does it have to be?
I don't want to. I want you to go. You can go and.
The tricky part for us is we've got staff support on this project, so it's not as if we can go consult with staff and get a better idea of what might be supportable because staff is supporting it as it sits. So we don't. How do we get better feedback?
Can this barbecue area be moved?
We could make it, and we could just make that a countertop. If you don't like the barbecue here, we could move the barbecue over here, make that a countertop, and not have the barbecue in the counter. If the counter could be supportable without the barbecue, great.
That's what I have concerns with the potential. Like I said, I don't have concerns with congregating in the setback.
Okay.
People use their setbacks all the time.
Okay.
We do have this line. We don't want hard improvements. It's then when you're proposing something in a setback, what is it you're proposing and what potential effects does it have? Mm-hmm. And the fact of you having a barbecue and this all right on the property line, I don't feel that's appropriate.
Could we take the barbecue out and leave the counter? Because
if you want to, what's the difference between, to me, I don't see a difference between the counter and like this planter, which people can sit on. Right. I know some people do, I don't. But I guess the activity of it all in this area, and agree with the property owner that, or with you guys, that it is set back, but I just have a problem allowing, just all this, the gas and all, or the barbecue and all that right permanently on the property line.
So, okay, well, Gail, we can talk about just removing the barbecue from that feature, keeping the counter there, and moving the barbecue over here, and outside of the setbacks, and so that it wouldn't even need.
It wouldn't need the
modification.
So the counter would.
But the counter could get approved,
Mm-hmm.
and the seating that could get approved as a countertop without the fireplace involved.
So is it?
I'm sorry. I meant barbecue, not fireplace.
I know I keep switching them too. I'm sorry.
Me and my fire.
So is it really? It sounds like the fire is the concern then.
Well, I think.
What's the difference between the counter and the barbecue? I don't understand.
It's the cooking and the smoke and the odor and that kind of stuff.
Affecting here.
Potentially, and I know she's supportive of it, but they change, owners change, and so she's not always going to be there. And that's great. You guys have good relationships for neighbors because that's not always the case.
It's really the cooking element of it.
Yes.
But now, and then, so someone that put a portable, you have no control over that,
I have
right?
no.
And the city's not giving it stamp of approval. Go cook on the property line.
Right.
So that's.
So if we moved this unit somewhere else in the counter, out of the setback.
Yeah. Unless.
Okay. Well, it would have to be out of the setback,
be,
otherwise we have to come back and get approval.
I don't see why I understand your design philosophy. It's going out there, and your view's this way, and I can imagine having a party sitting here looking out. So I don't know that you want to move it over here, but if you wanted to keep it in this area, it could go I would say 3 feet would be fine, in this area. But I don't know that would work with your plans.
Okay.
You're giving us options, so.
Well, we're just glad to have the conversation because
that's something we can make.
It's something that we can have a conversation about.
So it's the unit itself. We need to move the unit itself off the property line, is what I'm hearing.
And the refrigerator's fine. It's under counter. That's not an issue, right?
Refrigerator, barbecue. This is storage, and then the gas burner.
Yeah, I don't have. The refrigerator's fine.
That one's
that's the refrigerator.
Oh, sorry,
Just doors to get access.
Cooking. Yeah, no, that's fine. Where was your sink going?
There's no sink.
No sink? Oh, okay.
Should we put in a sink? Wait, do we need a sink?
No sink.
Don't complicate things.
No sink.
No, if you cut out the barbecue,
the counter can stay.
The counter and the fridge can stay, but
you'd like to see the barbecue a ways away from the property line.
Well,
yeah, if
the
you
barbecue
wanted
would just be some separate. At this point, I think it's just going to be a portable thing over here that's accessible. It's just going to be something else.
Because would it make, you're the designer, if I just don't see it being appropriate in this wing.
No, it would.
I don't think we should get a modification today based on its relocation somewhere else on the countertop. That seems confusing to me. I think we should just
take the denial of the barbecue
and get approval of the modification, and you can sort out where you'd like to put it outside of the setback in the future.
Is there a way in this corner, Jeremy, that I guess that wouldn't be any different? You wouldn't, because that'd still be.
Well, it's farther off. It's not right on the line. It's
No, she
set
said
off
maybe
some.
3 feet.
But if we propose it, Gail, anywhere on this side of the purple, we would have to come back. That's
No,
all.
she didn't say 10 feet.
If you, 7, so if it was 7 feet from the property line.
In line with the outer edge of the fire table feature.
Well, I could just word it, a modification to allow the barbecue to be located, or either encroach 3 feet in setback or to be located 7 feet from the property line instead of the required 10.
Okay. That gives you.
That gives us some.
That's some flexibility. Is where you put it on that counter. And is 5 feet possible on that, or does it need to be 7 feet? Because 5 feet allows us to be
in the middle.
In the middle and not off like three quarters ish. So could 5 feet. I mean, if I'm looking at where's my 5 foot?
Here you have the scale. It's 1 inch.
And the property line's a little bit off the.
Yeah, the property line. That's true. The barbecue's off the line by a foot at least.
Yeah, the wall's not the property line. The wall's a little bit in from the property line.
I think you had that.
I recall it's half of 30 scale.
Oh, so even though, because it's reduced down?
This totally goes
so
beyond my
it's
scale.
20.
I cannot scale
So it's
things.
20 scale then.
That goes beyond me.
At one point I could do that, but I can't anymore.
5 would be there, 7 would be there.
Okay.
Do you have a pencil?
I don't have, oh, she has a pencil.
I don't want to write on that one, but.
So if you take it, also take it off, make sure it's off the property line, not off your wall, so that we're not pushing farther than we
5
do.
is actually, 5 is the edge of the counter right now. That's 5 feet from the property line.
So then that's, if this is 10, that's not 10 then.
Yeah, that's more than 10 if this is half scale.
The
I don't
purple
know.
line- We'll go on this side of the purple line.
Well,
Yeah, I don't know what we got going on here.
well, the problem is, it says 110, but it was reduced, I guess.
Well, when you
It's not, if it's not work, if he's scaling it at,
see, but when you look at the scale, it's saying 60 feet
We're really just
and
talking.
30 feet, so it's half of 30 scale, not 1 is 20. So where it says it would be 10, that's 5 feet. I'm sorry. Because it's tiny.
Well, that's okay, because 5 is.
Right in
That way it could be right in the middle. You get a little 3-foot unit to be here.
And you can get that approved today, and then if you choose not to put it there and you want to put it somewhere outside the setback, you can make that choice.
and you
But
still have the option of
but you
appealing
still have
away
the-
the Planning Commission.
and asking for your original thing.
Okay, yeah, sure.
No, poor Gail feels so like hammered over it. Okay. So approved with barbecue 5 feet off the property line.
Right.
All right.
And the burner as well. Any gas? Because we have the burner and the
It's a
barbecue.
side burner.
This is a side burner right here.
It's like a.
It's its own separate.
It's just a small thing to keep things warm.
It's like the size of one of your pictures.
Oh, that's fine.
Where it's at?
Yeah.
Well, that's in
it's
the
just right at
counter.
corner.
Yeah, that's
That's part of the, it's not a cooking, it's not like a heating element.
It is. It's just like
Yeah,
to
it's a
keep
single
things warm.
burner.
It's like to keep fondue warm or what have you.
That's okay.
Okay. Great.
Okay, so trying to think if, what I'll probably do is add that as a condition, that the proposed barbecue be located 5 foot from the interior property line.
If it's to be included, it would be there. We don't want to be conditioned that the barbecue go in because at this point.
Oh, well, yeah.
Okay, say if a barbecue is to be located in the interior setback, it would be 5 feet. It will be 5 feet from the property line. Do you know what I'm saying? I just don't
Well,
want
if I put a condition that the barbecue will be located 5 feet and then you don't do it, you don't do it.
Okay.
Because there's none proposed, so the condition doesn't.
Fine. I just don't want it
Yeah,
to
no.
conditioned that.
No, it won't.
Because it may very well be out there, that poor Ms. Fisher
No.
goes out there and just is like, that completely ruins the seating and it doesn't work at all, and so I'm going to do something else outside. Okay? Okay.
All right, so with that, turn the project around. Approve the project. I'm still making that change to the first finding,
It's
just
fine.
to move away from the slope calculation thing. And then you read the other conditions regarding the stormwater. I mean, that's a code requirement.
The only condition that needed to be slightly changed would be number 2, talking about application material shall include evidence of a quitclaim. I request that be removed because a quitclaim would not be an element of the resolve of the quiet
So what did
title.
that?
It's just a recorded judgment from the Superior Court.
Shall include a recorded judgment?
Correct. And I don't know if you need to find this or not. As I mentioned in my presentation, we had gotten approval from all the city that we can do these tracks concurrently, primarily because money has been invested in their we want to get the improvements moving so that we're not losing what's the materials out there while we're waiting for this, while the Superior Court grinds at its slow pace. So they allowed us, graciously, the city allowed these things to track concurrently. So this modification gets granted. I just want to make sure there's nothing in this building permit issuance. Appears to me to try to change that permission to work things concurrently, because we'd like to get our building permit issued so that we don't have the improvements out there fading and falling apart. And the condition is if we don't succeed at our voluntary merger and the quiet title and voluntary merger, they have to come out, and she's fully aware of that. But at this point, what we'd like to do is be able to get our building permit issued so she can finish what's out there and not have what laid ruin what's out there for more months while the Superior Court does its efficient process of justice. So that's why we're here today before that process is resolved, is because waiting on the Superior Court, we may all grow old and die.
Well, that's actually not my.
But it's a condition of this approval prior to building permit
That's a
issuance.
requirement of the building official, right? In terms of you need to have control
You need
of the
to
property.
own the land that you're building on before you can
So I
build
guess
on it.
we're already paid our double fines for as built. So and I'm just going to say this out loud so we all just feel I don't want to be dishonest. You've already paid your double fines for building as built, so you could proceed because you've already paid your fines for it with the expectation that because they're saying that to get your actual issued building permit, unfortunately, they're going to want the whole Superior Court issue resolved. Do you see what I'm saying? Which is a disappointment because
I thought that they already said that we could move
they
forward.
did, but they're saying this is saying no, and I'm just
they did before
they did.
the other letter.
I believe the building official will not allow you to continue work until you own the land underneath.
Ironically, we own the land because nothing's in the 5-foot
Well,
strip.
what I can do is say unless
The decking.
unless approved by the building official prior to the issuance, unless allowed by the building official.
Perfect. That's a great variation to allow us
Well,
to go.
they're
and
not
have
going to
that
be able to get
conversation.
the lot merger until
But we don't have to do any work in that 5-foot strip. She owns.
They own the land.
She owns the 10-foot
She owns
strip.
the 10-foot strip that the improvements are in, other than the deck, which is less than 18 inches and arguably
That's the
doesn't
last
need a
thing that's gonna
permit,
go
right?
in anyways.
That is an interesting question because it's in the it's on their property. This is their property, but we don't allow accessory structure on a
This
vacant
is-
land, huh?
it's
Oh, the-
partially on top of the
Oh, the
5-foot
spa?
strip.
That's already in, though. You're talking about anything new.
I know. I think we're resolved here. I think that if the hearing officer wants to add, unless otherwise agreed to prior to issuing the building permit, an application shall be submitted. I think if that's in there, we can deal with it after, and we don't have to worry about it right now.
My understanding of the way that this was to proceed was that all discretionary approvals could be obtained at your own risk. You could go through building permit plan check, but we would not issue the permit until we knew you had acquired that 5-foot strip of land.
But then why would it? Okay, I understand what you're saying. It just feels a little bit funny that the point was a majority of the issue was that there were improvements out there that were fading before our eyes because we literally did a walk away when we found out that it was not correct. So we just wanted to shore up things to make sure things aren't deteriorating and we're not having to now go back and replace
Well,
improvements.
what would you need to shore up? Because it looks like it's all.
The patio's not completed. It could get undermined.
Oh, this part here?
Everything is like you see. I stopped everything. I got back March 31st, and I stopped everything. I called Jeremy April 1st when I read my mail. And
You might not be on the mic. We'll probably just push the button.
Yeah, my name is Gail Fisher, and I'm the owner of 952 Alameda Padre Serra. Yes, on March 31st, when I got back from being out of the country for a month, saw my mail. I immediately called Jeremy, said, we have to stop everything. And so, let's see, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. So we're coming up on 8 months.
8 months.
Yeah.
So if we take out the second sentence, materials shall include evidence of a quitclaim, and talk about resolve of the quiet title action with recording of a judgment, I actually think that we're fine with that going.
Well,
I
you
think
need the record judgment for the voluntary lot merger, right?
Yes.
So just taking out the second sentence isn't going to.
It's just the quitclaim part. It's just not a. It's just
Oh
not a
no, I
quitclaim.
am. I'm just
yeah,
doing.
that's
Yeah, the application material shall include a recorded judgment.
Fine. That's
For
it.
there. Oh, okay.
We're fine. I think we're fine. Thank you
okay.
for walking through that. This is not. I love the first items on your agenda were so simple and not historic and not so confusing, and so this was bound to be a little more complicated. So thank you for
Great.
taking the time to understand it and to also go out to the site and see what's going on. And thank you for that.
Okay. Okay. So with that, I'll make the findings as I modified today, and approve the project subject to the conditions as we revised them. And my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. And they also have oversight authority of all my actions. And if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day review period. And if that was to occur, Suzanne would contact you. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you very much.
She was supposed to meet